Good morning, church. If you are visiting this morning, I have emailed the sermon out to everybody, including you, Ted. And you can grab them and they can quickly email you along, because we're going to go through the account of the cross, but I'm going to hop from different gospel to different gospel. Okay, so do nudge them, etc. So the title of today's message is COVID-19 Unmasked. And we all have an opinion on COVID, don't we? Everybody has an opinion on COVID. Some people still think it's a joke, so you can still be wearing your Merry Christmas mask. And some people do that. Actually, there are still some people in the world who think it doesn't exist. Some of us just view it with dark depression. So we just, everybody's now going, I've got a black one I'm throwing away. Okay. Some view it just as the medical issue. So today I want to unmask COVID-19.
Come on, John.
What are the facts about COVID-19? It is a terrible disease.
Yeah.
It has devastated and affected many people. There is no doubt about that. We in Australia have most probably, of all countries, maybe except for New Zealand, had about as good as we could get it over the last 2 years. And we all need to be incredibly grateful to God for that.
Yeah.
What have we learned? Well, it's sad that God can humble the world, but that doesn't mean the world is going to get humbled.
Yeah.
What we should have learned is that life is fragile.
Yeah.
That there's no certainty or true security in life outside of a relationship with God. It just does not exist. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how protected you are. It doesn't matter how many friends you have. None of that matters. Your education, your career. None of that will stop COVID-19 coming into your body. True or false? Is it the worst disease or killer in the world right now? 60 million people die a year. All right, just die a year. That has not changed on their figures. It has not gone up more by percentage. It goes up a little bit every year, but in the last 2 years it has not increased exponentially. It has not. So globally, COVID-19 has not affected the proportion of people dying. So how do people die? Well, I just looked up the stats in the last year. 58 people died in Australia getting out of bed. But that doesn't stop you getting out of bed, does it? 80 people died of food poisoning, but I don't think that's going to make Manny stop eating. 3,477, depending on which website and any one day, people have died of COVID-19 in 2021. We are totally focused as a country and as well to prevent this disease. Yet it is the wrong focus. It should be a focus, but it is totally disproportionate. You go, how can you say that? We as Christians are totally focusing on eliminating the things that kill even more people. God tells us there are things that will kill you far more easily than COVID-19. He calls them sins. So here are some facts about 2019. 135 adults were murdered in Australia. 16 kids. But if you add abortions in that, it goes over to 65,000 people in Australia alone. Murder is wrong. 1,842 people died of illegal drugs in Australia in 2021. 3,120 people died of suicide in Australia in 2021. Nearly as much as COVID. 6,000 people died from alcohol-related diseases, drinking too much alcohol. 21,000 people died of smoking. And yet, where are the billboards of give up the cigarettes? 84,000 men, I couldn't find the figures of women, 84,436 men died of sexually transmitted diseases in 2021. We believe sex outside marriage is wrong. We believe getting drunk and doing excess alcohol is wrong. God believes. God believes suicide is wrong. Drugs are wrong. And that murder and abortion is wrong. And yet, people are so consumed with this over here, they have not figured out what is really killing us over here. So unmasking the truth about COVID-19, it's not our biggest problem we have as a human race or here in Australia. Our biggest issue is that people are not taking God's word seriously. And it's having devastating effects, killing millions of people every year. The biggest thing to fear is death without a relationship with God. That is without doubt. Is death without a relationship with God. And as many of the medical, and I'm not a medical expert, which is why I asked so many people to speak, but even James, as he was in his last year of as a doctor, who's just gone on to give up being a doctor and then lead our church in Hong Kong, he goes, most people in the hospital, actually we give them a few little drugs that just keep them going for a couple of weeks and their body just heals themselves. He said that's how most people get healed in hospital. I was like, now he can say that, I can't say that. It's like, if you just give them a couple of Panadol and put them in a bed and look after them, the body rights itself in most degrees. I was like, wow. So he goes, the impact I can have as an evangelist versus a doctor, there's no comparison. So what is really stopping you from really connecting with God and His Word and His truth? Why are people not actually following the Bible? Why don't they just read it and go, actually, these are the issues in the Bible? Most people miss their opportunity to have a relationship with God, and He is very often right in front of them. Sometimes He is right in front of them, but for only a very short period of time. And most people don't actually realize the opportunity they have with God. It may be their only opportunity. People go, I'll have many opportunities. The Bible actually doesn't say that. Isaiah 55:6 says, seek the Lord while He may be found. Call on Him while He is near. You think about it. If you give somebody help and they keep refusing it, why do you go back? You go look for somebody that's actually going to take the help. If you are here today, this may be the only or the last chance you have to get right with God. You go, that's scary. Yeah, it is. And that fear is meant to motivate you. We hide behind a mask and we don't really reveal ourselves completely. It's hard to recognize somebody behind a mask. I was with some friends at Sydney Uni, and we'd met a guy earlier in the week called Ahmed. And I didn't know if it was him at the counter. Do you know what I mean? Because he had a mask on. I saw the back of his head. So I took a picture of him at the back of the head at the counter. Because I go, if you go up to somebody who's a bit weird, hey, Ahmed! Oh, okay. It's Bob. Okay. And especially with the David Cup, it said, hey, is this you? He goes, yes. I go, great, come and join us. But when you have a mask on, even though you can be like 5 yards away from somebody, it can still be, hard to actually recognize them. Worse, we can put a mask on Jesus to try and hide Him. We can be like a little kid, like when we play hide and seek as adults, we really hide. Does that make sense? But like a 2-year-old goes, I'll hide. Peekaboo. And they're not really hiding, but that's how humans can be. I say, if I just put a mask between me and Jesus, I don't need to focus on it. Not understanding that Jesus can see through the mask. Today we're going to take a look at Jesus' build-up to Him being crucified. And see all the people that actually had a chance to connect with Jesus, but they missed their opportunity. Because they were hiding behind a mask that they thought covered up their true heart. But actually, the fact that their stories are written in the scriptures shows how easily, when you took an objectional view at it, it was easy to see what their issue was. In other words, the whole world saw it, but them. And isn't that the problem? We honestly think that we are projected this way, and yet we aren't really. So I'm going to take a look at 9 ways that people try and hide behind a mask. A little bit of scripture, so we'll just flow through it, and we'll let the scriptures just do the talking. Point 1, Mark 14:27. Peter tried to hide behind the mask of pride. So Mark 14:27. You will all fall away, Jesus told them, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. Peter declared, even if all fall away, I will not. Even if Manny falls away or Solomon, I'm not going to fall away. Truly I tell you, Jesus answered, today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourselves will disown me 3 times. Peter insisted emphatically, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the others said the same. The reason that Peter did not heed Jesus' words was pride. He went, I'm much stronger than that. Jesus, you don't know me. I'm strong. I'm young. I've followed you for 3. I'm Peter. God, I don't need you. I'm pretty strong. He had a higher view of himself than what he could actually do in his life. Yet later on, it was Jesus' words that were proved true, not Peter's own opinion of himself. Many people feel and believe that they are strong enough to live life without Jesus. Even if Jesus, when you go away, I'll be okay. They're arrogant. They're totally arrogant. I give this analogy to many people. In life, God creates us like a car with 3 wheels. Okay? So you heard how Steph said that she saw her need for God. She was in a situation, you go, well, I don't have Steph's problems. But back to the car with 3 wheels. What he does is, obviously a car's meant to have 4 wheels. Solomon? Okay, it's meant to have 4 wheels to actually get somewhere. Okay, all right, just so you know that one. And what happens is, though, we go, I can drive a car with 3 wheels. All right. If I've got lots of friends, I'm so socially brilliant, I have all these friends, I can just get all my friends to sit on the corner opposite where the wheel is, and we can drive along. I can figure out how my life can work without God. Some people are so talented, they can actually drive along in a car on 2 wheels. They go, I don't even need, forget God, I don't need anything. I'm going to drive along on 2 wheels. But eventually, as your friends leave, because they get married and they move away, your life will crash, your car will crash. And eventually, because the car's not actually built to go on its 2 wheels, they will snap. But a man who has had a terrible life, terrible upbringing, if he simply, doesn't matter how bad his car is, how beaten up his car is, if he sticks that 4th wheel on, he will overtake every talented and every socially acceptable man or woman in this world. You see, the issue is not, do we need God?
Yeah.
The issue is, do you see your need for God?
Come on.
You go, I don't now. You will. You will. Don't be faked out by Facebook or social media. Notice how it's mainly filled with young and proud people trying to tell the world how great they are. Yeah. Not full of old, wise people who waste their time on Facebook. They don't need to tell anybody how messed up their life is. They already know it.
Come on.
Point 2. The disciples tried to hide behind the mask of laziness. Mark 14:32. They went to a place called Gethsemane. Jesus said to his disciples, sit here while I pray. He took Peter, James, John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. He said to them, stay here and keep watch. Going a little further, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible, the hour might pass from him. Abba, Father, he said, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Simon, he said to Peter, are you asleep? Couldn't you keep watch just for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Once more he went away and prayed the same thing. When he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. They did not know what to say to him. Returning a 3rd time, he said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Enough, the hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. Jesus was facing one of his toughest times in life. And he knew that to succeed, to get through this really hard time in his life, he needed to stay up and deal with his emotions in prayer, even if it took all night long. And what his disciples do? They said, I'm going to sleep. It is amazing how many look at being spiritual as it just takes too much effort. It does. Marriage takes a lot of effort. It really does. Having friendships take a lot of effort. You've got to forgive everybody, right? Having a good career. Everything takes effort. But the world is set up for laziness. We are creating all sorts of gadgets to become lazy. There's even a robot by Musk, like a bot or something. It's like, we need passion. This world is vacuum of passion. In life, you will either feel the pain of hard work and discipline or the pain of failure. But pain you will feel.
Yeah.
And if you try and avoid pain, then you'll have a miserable life, because you can't. Do you feel like following Jesus would just take too much effort? Jesus is the person on earth who has had the greatest impact. Even Muslims would agree with that. He's the most famous man on the planet. And yet, people refuse to imitate him. He never even left Israel. He never even traveled the world. And yet people are speaking about him in Peru, Alaska, Siberia, all around the world. Because of his character. Because of his character. Surely Jesus is the only person that is worthy of imitation. Are you too lazy to have a relationship with God? Remember, if you're not having a relationship with God, then you are actually having a relationship with Satan. You go, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. 1 John 3:10. This is how we know who the children of God are and who the children of the devil are. Anyone who does not do what is right is not God's child, nor is anyone who does not love their brother or sister. If you're caught in a house and somebody in another bedroom is selling drugs, you will go to jail. Because you're in a house where you are having a relationship with them and you didn't stop them. You have a relationship with God or with his enemy. People go, I don't want to believe that. It's true whether you believe it or not. Point 3. Judas tried to hide behind the mask of anger. Mark 14:43. Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests to teach the law and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with him. The one I kiss is the man, arrest him and lead him away under guard. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, Rabbi, and kissed him. And the men seized Jesus and arrested him. Judas was originally a follower and a friend of Jesus. Yet he had fallen into secret sin, or what he thought was secret sin. In John 12:4, it says, but one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And as a keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. Judas valued money more than his relationship with people and more than his relationship with God. He had no problem stealing money to go and buy a quick Snickers or a Mars bar, and yet his other disciples weren't eating anything. Instead of getting open and dealing with his heart, he got angry that everyone else did not feel the same. Why aren't you focused on money? Don't you understand what money can give you? It destroyed all of his relationships and his relationship with God. Loving the world will only lead to anger. Because there's always somebody who has more than you. There's always somebody better looking than you. There's always somebody with more talent than you. There's always somebody to be more envious and jealous of. Pity the man for whom God is not enough. What was Judas's solution? It was to destroy Jesus and the apostles. Are you trying to kill God in your life? You never will. Once you know God is real, he haunts you. Many of us have been non-Christians. That stage just before you're a Christian. And you believe in God, and he haunts the stew out of you. There is on your bed at night, he's there, right? In the morning, he's there. You can hide the Bible, you can burn the Bible, you can throw it away, you can delete the Bible on your phone. And somehow then you'll get on Facebook and some stupid Christian will put some spiritual scripture there and you'll delete them and you'll delete another one and you'll delete another one. Even when you're in sin as a Christian, he haunts you, don't it? It's the only thing you think about. You go, I need to talk to somebody today. Today I'm going to go to church, I'm going to talk to them. Your church, I'm not going to talk about, I'm embarrassed now. And then you go, do you think that feeling's going to go? It never goes away.
Yeah.
And then you just get more and more angry because you stop praying, then you start blaming people and etc. You're hiding behind the mask of anger today. Some try and hide behind the mask of religion. Mark 14:53. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and teachers of the law came together. Peter followed him at a distance right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself by the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard it say, I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days we'll build another not made by hands. Yet even then their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, are you going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again the high priest asked, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? I am, said Jesus. And you will see the Son of Man at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest tore his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses? He asked. Have you heard the blasphemy? What do you think? They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, prophesy. And the guards took and beat him. Understand this. If you don't understand the Bible, the chief priests and the Sanhedrin were meant to be the most spiritual people in the whole land. So I'm the minister here, that'd be like, I'm meant to be the most spiritual guy, right? Or the Pope if you're a Catholic. This is who they're meant to be. They thought that their commitment to services, the amount of money they gave, and all their prayers made them right in the eyes of God. Yet they were far from God. I mean, look at them. They're trying to kill Jesus, and they're lying, and they're spitting, and they're hitting. Okay, do you understand? You walk in, but they're all so religious, they go, this is good. They're walking out, go, man, did you spit? Yeah, I spat, and I got him. Did you hit him? Yeah, I hit his ear. Do you understand how crazy religion can be?
Yeah, come on.
What do they lack? They lack love.
Yeah.
Here they clearly did not love Jesus. It's amazing how many people who claim to be Christians that I meet just aren't loving. We evangelize a lot. We were out yesterday, and it was great to go out and evangelize yesterday. And actually, the guy that I didn't recognize with the mask, we bumped into him yesterday. I bumped into the whole Fiji rugby league team. They promised to come. Guys, where are you? Okay, and but it's amazing. You go up to people and go, hey, I'm a Christian. They go, me too. I'm like, hey, great. What are you doing? Right, you know, Christians, 2, right? Okay, let's swap numbers. No. Can you imagine meeting Jesus on the street? You go, hey, buddy, let's swap numbers. He goes, no. Did you know what I mean? Or not return text. You ever met somebody, oh yeah, I go to this church, you text them, you phone them, and never reply to you? Yeah. Do you think Jesus would do that? I know he doesn't, because when I text him in my prayers, God, please help me, he texts back straight away. I mean, I don't see the text, praise God. You know, we don't need to come up with the next iPhone just to communicate to Jesus. And then you sit down and go, I'm a good person. You go, well, explain to me what good is. Well, I don't, swear. I don't sleep around. I don't get drunk. Great. I know a lot of atheists that don't do any of those. See, being good is not about what you don't do. It's about what you do. Think about it. Show little mini hands in your heart. Just put up your hand in your heart. Okay? Are you a Christian? And I'm even talking to the Christians in the church. Think about it. Just get real. Did you help a stranger this week by giving to them financially? Not a friend. Why not a friend? Pagans help pagans out, right? Non-Christians help non-Christians out all the time. Did you go and use your money in some way through benevolence or individually and help somebody? Did you talk to anybody that's a complete stranger this week who doesn't know about God, that you don't know, just went up and you started talking about, I have the gospel? Did you help anybody this week by giving them your time? You actually got with a stranger, spent your time with them, and talked to them about their needs. If you didn't put your hand up, you're most probably not a Christian. You go, well, I'm a member of this church. Let me just say it again. You're most probably not a Christian. Because that's what Christians do. It gets pretty convicting now, doesn't it? See, it's not about avoiding sin. We actually do good works so that we're so busy we don't sin. We don't do good works to prove ourselves Christians or to go to heaven. We occupy ourselves with good works so we don't fall into sin. If you hadn't figured that out, if I'm evangelizing all Saturday, then I'm not on telly watching stupid stuff. Does that make sense? So we work hard because we are saved, not to be saved. But if you stop loving people, God is super clear. You're not going to enjoy it to heaven because we're a crazy bunch of Alistairs that are just going to hug you and love you and, just be in your life all the time. You go, well, what about me time? No me time in heaven. It's true, right? Where are you going to hide? There's no houses. Okay. Point number 5. Are you trying to hide behind the mask of cowardice? Every human being, no matter what religion or atheist, knows being a coward is wrong. Everybody. Matthew 69. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. You also were Jesus of Galilee, he said. But he denied it before them all. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, this fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He denied it again with an oath. I don't know the man. After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away. Then he began to call down curses, and he swore to them, I don't know the man. Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the words Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. It always shocks me, even with myself, how quickly it is, how easy it is to become unspiritual. How quick you can do that. Here's Peter. Remember that proud man, never deny you, Jesus. He's only a couple of, a few hours beforehand by this. It's like, me, no. He went from hiding behind his pride to hiding behind his cowardice. He was too ashamed to be associated with Jesus. At this moment, you see, Jesus looked like a failure. I mean, he'd been spouting power and angels and love and miracles, but he's in prison now. It's amazing how quickly people give up on God when life gets a little tough or persecution comes along. Praise God that he doesn't give up on us.
Come on.
All it does is expose our hearts.
Yeah.
Are you too cowardly to call Jesus your friend publicly? I remember the last job I had in business before I became a minister. In my interview, I was like, I need you to know I'm a Christian. If you lie to me, I will leave. If you ask me to lie to you, I will leave. If you don't want to employ a Christian, don't bother employing me, because I'll tick you off. You know what? They said afterwards that was why they hired me. Wasn't anything else I said. They said our company had become so devoid of morals, we realized that we need to start employing moral people. See, you never know when you stand up for God what's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Are you masking your faith at school, at work? You know what it's like? Somebody goes, have you ever had this happen to you? Praise God, I haven't. I've had many sins happen to me. But somebody brings somebody to church and you know them and you've never invited them. You're like, I think we're on the same course. Oh. You know what it's like? Are you out there just proud to be a Christian?
Come on.
Jesus' teachings and Christianity are not popular in Australia. They're not. We don't compromise. We say things are wrong that today go, you can't say that. You can't say man, woman, this, that. You can't. It's not right. Says who? Says who? The truth has never been popular. Man's deep desire to believe a soothing lie blows my mind. Blows my mind. And they're all dealing with problems that if they don't understand the truth will lead to disaster. Unrepentant cowards never live a happy life. If you don't actually know what you believe, you can never be happy. You can never choose a group to join. You can never know whether your friends like you or not. My friends like me because they know I have strong opinions. And they go, I've got to make a decision whether I like him or not. That's how people felt about Jesus. People either loved Jesus or hated him. That was it. There was no grey area. Cowards are not free to love as they truly want to be because they're controlled by fear. They live in fear of people rather than the freedom of God. Are you trying to hide behind the mask of self-pity Oh, let's go there, shall we? Matthew 27. They made their plans how to have Jesus executed. So they bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw away the money in the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. You know what? His best friends, all of a sudden, it was exposed. They didn't care about Judas. You know, we all mess up. Some bigger than others. And I would say, killing the Messiah, bit of a mess up. Just a tiny one right there, okay? Just a little one. If you're going to kill someone, try to not pick the Messiah. Not that you should choose to kill somebody. Let me just... That's right. Okay, all right, okay. We are not defined by how we mess up.
Right.
We are defined by how we respond to how we mess up.
Come on.
Today, the biggest killer of men in Australia between 17 and 40 is suicide still. Is suicide. I try and tell that to people outside of Australia because Australia is a pretty wealthy, you know, what you would say affluent country. And, you know, I just don't get that. I do. Worldliness doesn't work.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? It's actually because the world is short of biblical consequences. Now, I've struggled with suicide before I was a Christian, and I've struggled with thoughts of it after I was a Christian. Only thoughts. But you see, the world doesn't understand Christian values. Forgiveness. Many people can commit suicide because they can't forgive themselves or somebody else. Atonement. That there is atonement. When you live a life for God and you help people, it soothes that feeling of, I find it hard to forgive myself. Confession. Just being open about who you are. It's one of those fun things. Anybody that has confessed, you go, if I confess, this is surely the greatest sin in the world and no one will ever be my friend. And then you sit next to Jordan and he confesses next, you go, I'm not that bad. You know what I'm saying? But it's one of those things about sin you suddenly realize they don't understand emotional and spiritual healing. People commit suicide because they have got to an unspiritual point. Jesus walked away from God into Satan's arms because he gave into self-pity. Let me just encourage you. There is no sin that will shock us. I've only been in one sin study with somebody that has shocked me, and it was going for 2 hours, and I left and let somebody else finish it off because I was only a year-old Christian. And that was in the stuff. But let me just tell you who's in this room. Thieves, liars, murderers, and that's just me. So there is nothing that cannot be forgiven. The power of forgiveness is unbelievable. We don't understand. I remember, this is always my clearest memory. I studied this guy from Vietnam called Minh Tran. And we did study, and we did light and darkness. And I kid you not, he went, Joe, let's just stop this study. Are you saying that if I repent and get baptized, every one of my sins will be forgiven? I said, yeah. He said, no. Let me get this right. Because he came from a Buddhist background. So let me get this right. Everything I've ever done wrong will be counted as if I have never done it. I went, yeah. It took him 3 days to become a Christian. Saw it as clear. He opened about some disgusting stuff. And he'd been abused in the background and said, I remember it clear as day. He went, I'm getting forgiven today. Now that is an opportunity everybody has, Christian or not, every day of their life. You want to talk about mental health? You can't have mental health without forgiveness.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. That's what's on offer. But so many of us go, I just prefer self-pity. Point 7, are you trying to hide behind the mask of indifference? I just don't care. I'm bored of you already. I can't wait till this service is over. Matthew 27:11.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now, it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus Barsabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one of you do you want me to release to you?" And of course, they said Jesus, and it all went well. No, they were idiots, okay? Humans are idiots. I think we can all agree on that, okay? Jesus, Barabbas, or Jesus. Maybe they got confused with the name. I don't know. Who is called the Messiah? For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message. "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I've suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they said. "What shall I do then with Jesus who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. Then they all answered, "Crucify him." "Why, what crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I'm innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." Let me ask you, who calls their son Pontius Pilate? No one. I've even met people called Judas. I have. In the Philippines, they call anybody any name. If you live in the Philippines, you know. I remember Dr. Sin. I used to live in Makati. I mean, they'll choose any name like, Ahab, that'll do. You're not realizing he's a bad guy. I mean, just anything. Never Pontius Pilate. Never met one. Pontius Pilate was a busy man, and some would say in his day an important man. He was also the only man on earth that could have saved Jesus. The only one. And yet he missed his chance to become one of the greatest heroes of all time in history. You see, he was used to telling people around him what to do. He wouldn't even listen to his wife. She said, "I've got a serious..." He didn't go, "You know what? Let's put this on hold. I need to go and talk to my wife." See, he was so used to just going around spouting out his opinion, he lost the ability to hear.
Come on.
He was easily persuaded by evil people around him, even though he knew where their hearts were at. He goes, "I know these men are evil. I don't care. I've got another plan." Instead of taking the time to consider what he was doing, he chose the path of indifference. He said, "I know what I'll do. I will wash my hands of the matter." Yet the fact that I'm still preaching about Pontius Pilate shows you the blood is still on his hands. You see, a decision to not make a decision is a very loud no thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know who did the original quote. You can search it up. But it says the only thing the world needs to go badly is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah.
You see, you go, I'm indifferent about God. That's a no. That's a no.
Yeah.
Clear, plain no. You have either accepted the truth about Jesus or rejected it. One thing you cannot do in the eyes of God is remain neutral. On Judgment Day, there is not a heaven and a hell and a waiting room for you to decide which door to go through. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Point 8, are you trying to hide behind the mask of work? Oh, let's talk about the modern mask. Mark 15:16. The soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is the praetorium, and called together a whole company of soldiers. They put a purple robe on him. They twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Again and again they struck him on the head without a staff and spit on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put on his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. You know, for these soldiers, their chance to meet Jesus was actually at work. Many people are called to follow Jesus at work, and it takes them leaving their job. Peter and Andrew were called while they were fishermen. "Hey, come follow me." Just had to leave their job. Matthew was at the tax collector booth. He was at work. Jesus said, "Enough of work, come follow me." Yet these soldiers were so consumed by their work that they didn't even notice Jesus God in the flesh standing right in front of them. It is amazing how blind we can be. In actual fact, they were so consumed by their job that they had become an abusive gang of slanderous men. You know, it's one thing I know about work. I've worked in many different jobs and careers, and there is one common theme. At work, all people do is slander people all day. Or did you see that Married at First Sight? Or at the weekend, what do you think about her? And what do you think about her? And my husband did this to me, and I can't believe that my husband would do this, or my wife would do that. All they do, all day long, is slander people. That's all they do. Because they're bored. They've got nothing great to talk about. They might slip in Ash Barty, who, if you don't know, is an Australian famous tennis player. Okay, for those of you that don't live in the real world. Okay, all right. Okay, but what I'm saying is, you know, it just blows my mind. But here's the thing. If your main influence is work, you will be drawn into a gang of slanderous people. If you don't have something to balance it with, if you don't have a social group like this, if you don't have Christians who go, you know what, I knew I didn't mean to slander, but I slipped into it, I need to clean myself through confession. If you don't have the goodness, if you don't have, you know, what's going on in the world and evangelizing, you will just be drawn into this person that in the end will turn slander into hate to harming people. I remember, you can make such a big influence at work, or you can let work destroy your relationship with God. I remember one of my first jobs, because I used to have a minister in London, and he used to start every single sermon with, there were these three guys, and he'd normally pick on the church, you know, he'd go, there was Jesse, and there was Solomon, and there was Emmanuel, and he'd do, in England, there's always like the Irishman, the Englishman, you know, the Scotsman, and like that, but he'd transfer this, and he got to the point where work goes, what was the joke this week? What was the joke this week? I said, I'll only tell you if I can tell you the sermon. All right, well, what did the sermon go? Okay, then I'll tell you the joke. But you can have such a massive influence and take God into work. Let me tell you, there is no job in the world worth destroying your relationship with God with. We already saw, you know, Judas, all of a sudden he swapped sides. I'm going to be a great Pharisee. If I betray Jesus, I'm sure they'll give me a job. They went, we ain't giving you a job. I don't care, we gave you money, you bike. Work don't love you.
Yeah.
Work employs you to use you. That's why you get paid. Okay? That's why you get paid. You ever figured that? Are you trying to hide behind the mask of bitterness? The last one.
Come on, Joe.
Luke 23:32. Two other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. Mark 15:32. Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him. Jesus was crucified with criminals. We don't know what led them to be criminals. You know, some of us don't have the ideal life growing up, and that's just true. And the Bible says, you know, give me so much wealth that I forget you, and so much lack of wealth that I rob. I mean, people have hard lives, without a doubt. And yet, for them to get to the point where they did a crime where they would have been crucified unless they were Jesus, they must have done fairly serious things in life. What we do know is that they were bitter. They were bitter. Even at the end, they were spitting out insults. Remember, Jesus did nothing. They just were spitting out bitterness. You know what it's like. You can be angry over here about this thing, and then anybody you interact with, you just attack. Do you blame God for what has happened in your life? When really the truth is, you're at the place you're at because of the bad decisions you made. I very much doubt that you are one of those people, like Jesus, who was on the cross because he made good decisions in life. You are at where you are at because of what you have done and what you have said. When you accept that, life becomes so liberating.
Yeah.
You know why? Because then you can change it.
Yeah.
And point 10. Are you trying to hide behind the mask of procrastination? Here comes the real victory story in the crucifixion. And you know what? Most people know this. Even non-Christians know this story. They refer to the thief on the cross. What about the thief on the cross? He's a man that gives us hope. He's one of the few heroes in the Bible that we don't even know his name, which is really unusual. Normally in the Bible, if there's a hero, there's a name. But I think God didn't want us to take away, well, I can't change because I'm not like Bob. You know, and Bob had a good education, but he's just like, anybody can change. See, this one criminal, even on the cross, he was bitter, and then something hit him. He going, this is stupid. I spent my whole life blaming people, my whole life being bitter. And here is a perfect man being crucified in front of me for no reason. And he's fired up. He's happy. He's not bitter. In Luke 23:39 says, one of the criminals who hung there hurled their insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself from us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Why? He suddenly realized Jesus was the Messiah. The man next to him went from just a normal guy to, I have the privilege of being crucified with the Messiah. Wow. All my life, even right at the end, I'm given this incredible opportunity. So, but the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence. We are punished justly. You have to accept your sin. For we are getting what our deeds deserve. Understand there is punishment. But this man has done nothing wrong. Just remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus answered, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. You know what? It's never too late to change. Never too late to change. Seeing Jesus and how he handled all that had befallen him did something to his heart. And that's how we're meant to respond to the cross. In 2 Corinthians 5:14 it says, for Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all and therefore all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. This man understood that Jesus did not respond with pride, with spiritual laziness, with anger, by being religious, by being a coward. He didn't respond with self-pity or duty or indifference or bitterness. Jesus responded in every situation with love, even though the people around him betrayed him and harmed him. And this man on the cross went, wow, he is going to be my Messiah. That's who I have been crucified next to. You know, it's never too late to change. You may have come in here in this room through very odd circumstances. You may not have been invited. You may have looked us up on the internet and just walked on in. Actually, a whole lot of people did that in the first year, like Lennox and Kira and stuff. God has been working in your life. In conclusion, today, God is standing right here in front of you. He's asking you to respond to the cross, to take off your mask, get completely honest with who you are, and go, I'm going to hand my life in. This may be the only chance, or for some of you that have been around for a few months, the last chance. We've had people study the Bible, almost make it get COVID, and through that COVID, their heart has just gone completely hard. It may be the last chance. After the service today, you will be asked by a Christian, can we please study the Bible? And you need to say, yes, go to lunch and study the Bible with them. Unmask yourself and open up. Amen.